Thank you for being here. My name is Christian Sear. I am the Chief of Staff for the Mayor. And I'll just let
My name is Jim McCauley. I'm City Councillor for Ward 5. I'm also the Chair of Public Works and Safety. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. So how tonight's going to work, we are hoping it will be roughly an hour. I'm going to provide a short presentation. This presentation is just going to get into what the city is currently doing with the current levels of fluoride in the water, and just provide some context. We're not really going to go into the details of the debate and discussion. We will then open up, and most of the time will be set for a public comment. So if a resident wishes to speak, please raise your hand. You can go to the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak. And because we do have a large crowd, we do expect that you are able to speak once, and then we will move on to other residents if possible. So we understand that there will probably be discussion and debate, but keep in mind we aren't necessarily answering questions and having them back and forth. Your comments are going to be recorded. We do have the public health in here, and we also will take notes for a Board of Health meeting later this March, where the Board of Health can decide to make decisions. So with that being said, I'm just going to present a few slides on what is currently happening in Newburyport with fluoride in the water. So, as I mentioned, we're going to do an overview of the current practice. I'm going to go a little bit into the Board of Health and local regulations, and then we will open up to the public. So a quick history. Newburyport Water Division added fluoride in the water in 1969 for the purpose of promoting oral health and preventing cavities. That was based on current research at the time, and that has been the standard since. In 2015, the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, recommended that the level of fluoride be 0.7 milligrams per liter, or parts per million is roughly equivalent. Previously, there was a CDC recommendation of 1 milligram per liter. And just for reference overall, you know some members of our water department here, Newburyport Water supplies over 18,000 residents with drinking water. So the current practice, we do try to aim for 0.7 parts per million, or milligrams per liter. This is the CDC's recommended target. In 2024, the city averaged 0.65 milligrams per liter in the distribution system. I'll get into this in a minute, but our water department does test very frequently on water supply and the contents of our water supply. We do monthly reporting to the Department of Public Health. There have been some previous questions at the Board of Health on the supply of sodium chloride, which is the chemical that's added to drinking water. It comes from a consortium, a regional consortium, where we procure the product that we add to our water supply, and it is certified by the state for being safe for drinking water. So state and federal guidelines and regulations. So just for clarification, there's been a lot of discussion. Our local Board of Health is responsible for the levels of fluoride in the water. There are guidelines at the federal level and state level. These are guidelines that we try to just follow. The Commonwealth ensures we follow the guidelines by having different types of monthly reporting and actually daily reporting. This is daily fluoridation reports, weekly, and then split sample testing reports. Throughout all these tests, we do follow standard operating procedures when we're adding the product to our water supply. So just to reiterate, we are currently recommended at 0.7 milligrams per liter. The Board of Health can decide to increase, decrease, or keep the level the same. I also just want to mention, Newburyport follows a mayor-council form of local government. Local government can change across the Commonwealth. Sorry, not change, but cities and municipalities have different forms of government across the Commonwealth. Some of our neighbors, like Newbury, have an open public meeting where they have a town hall meeting where people can vote. So sometimes I've heard people say, why don't we do that here? That's just because we have a different form of government. So we wanted to make sure there's a public forum where people can say their piece so that the Board of Health and others can make an informed decision. I also just wanted to note that part of the reason that this discussion is coming up now is there was a report from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that brought into question the current levels of fluoride in drinking water from across the United States. That was mentioning how fluoride could potentially increase IQ levels of young children.
That's a decrease.
Oh, sorry, decrease levels of children. And I did include a quote here from the report. I'm sure many will probably get into the details of it, but just that one of the key findings was the level of fluoride in that study was 1.5. And I just wanted to mention that our levels, again, recommended is 0.7. So I know people might still mention this. I just wanted to mention that is from the report. I will let you guys have a discussion on that. So, now we're going to move into public comment. So, again, we're not going to be answering questions tonight. This is where you, the public, can have a discussion on this. We do ask for respecting others to please keep your comments to 2 minutes. When you go to the podium, you will be able to sign your name and add your address. This is again for record keeping. And just to be clear, the Board of Health is not answering questions tonight. They will likely make a decision at their next agenda, on their next board meeting. If you don't wish to speak, but do want to have your say, please feel free to send an email to the Board of Health or our health department, so we can, of course, make sure that's in your packet for informational purposes. So, with that being said, how we're going to do this is I'm going to ask you to please raise your hand. I will call upon you. Councillor McCauley will also be at the podium. And we're just timing for 2 minutes. We will be pretty strict at the 2 minutes, just because as you can see, we have a lot of people here. And I want to make sure everyone has a chance to say their point. So, I will take hands for public comment now. Yes, ma'am.
Come on back.
Oh, sorry. Please go ahead.
Okay, 2 minutes, right?
Yes.
I had written a letter to the water superintendent, Thomas Kusick.
Some people are saying it should be a little more volume.
A little more volume, like that? Right. I had written a letter to Thomas Kusick, water superintendent, in the fall, and he wrote back to me and confirmed that Newburyport is buying fluoride from China and putting it in our drinking water. Through the consortium, as you said. The EPA relinquished their oversight of drinking water additives on April 7th, 1990. At that time, the oversight of drinking water additives was turned over to Water Additives Industries, so they could self-regulate. At the April 2014 Board of Health meeting in Amherst, Mass., it was communicated that the laboratory testing of fluoride powder obtained from 6 different chemical manufacturers in China were found to be contaminated with lead, arsenic, aluminum, uranium, and strontium.
Oh my God.
Adding toxic heavy metals to the municipal drinking supply at any level has the potential to cause harm over time. Exposure does not lead to the chemicals being excreted. Instead, they may be stored in body tissues for months or decades where they bioaccumulate. I have written a second letter dated February 20th, 25 to Mr. Kusick asking him 2 questions. Do you know if the consortium that we buy chloride from conducted the same tests on their fluoride from China that Amherst did? Amherst used something called inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometry. Did they test for heavy metals? That's my first question. And the second one is, who has the authority to halt or suspend the addition of fluoride to our Newburyport drinking water? Thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have no answer from him.
My name's Elizabeth Below, and I live on Markline Lane in Newburyport. And I spoke on this, I think, about 10 years ago. My I'm not going to talk very long. I'm not a dentist. I'm not a scientist in this field. And so as far as I'm concerned, whether or not, whatever my opinion might be on fluoride in the water is irrelevant. The experts in the field, the data in the field is very clear that fluoride in the water is one of the most efficacious ways of preventing dental caries and helping oral health for people in the United States. There are studies that talk about IQ and all those kind of things. They're done in China and India, where, as you said, the levels of fluoride are far above what they are in the United States and what they're suggesting. I also want to mention that research does also show that water fluoridation really reduces dental caries disparities in social class. So people who say, oh, you can just buy fluoride if you want to, well, that's easy for some people to say, but that's not possible for everybody to do. So it is a social class issue as well. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hillary Nori, and I'm a certified dental assistant from Newburyport Pediatric Dentistry. I'm here representing the practice and the dentists who I work with, Dr. Lindia Zekowitz and Dr. Rosalind Cilianto. They are both board-certified pediatric dentists and fellows to the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry. They could not be here tonight, so I'm going to speak on their behalf. Hello, caring citizens of Newburyport. We want to start by providing background on how community fluoridation of the water started. Fluoride, which is a naturally occurring substance, was first added to the public water supply in Grand Rapids, Michigan in 1945. The effects of fluoride in this town was tracked for 15 years and included 30,000 school children. What the study found was that the cavity rate after fluoride was added to the water dropped by more than 60%. This was the first time in history that dental cavities became a preventable disease for most people. Water fluoridation has since been regarded as one of the 10 great public health achievements of the 20th century. Dental cavities are one of the most common chronic diseases in children and have a lifelong consequence, and prevention is the best way to limit this disease. Fluoride toothpaste provides protection, but not the same way as fluoridated water, which bathes the teeth in low, safe levels of fluoride throughout the day as we consume things that harm our teeth. In children whose teeth are still developing, fluoride incorporates into the enamel the outer protective layer of the tooth and makes it stronger. Strong enamel makes it hard for bacteria to infect the softer parts of the tooth. When bacteria spreads into the tooth, infections occur, which results in the need for root canals, tooth removal, and in severe cases, hospitalizations. Emergency dental care accounts for 34 million missed school hours. Researchers have found that school absences caused by dental pain or infection were significantly related to poor school performance, but school absences for routine dental care were not. Fluoridation in the water is the #1 way to avoid these problems. The official stance from the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry about fluoride is that they affirm that the use of fluoride in the prevention of cavities is safe and effective. Everyone here cares, which is fantastic. Let's come together to do the right thing for these kids.
So sorry, just moving forward, I will try to give, apologies, I'll try to give everyone a 10 seconds heads up. So I apologize if I end up, I'll just try to either wave or if I have to speak.
Sam Robbie, 7 Brown Square. Just real quick, that meta study included well water and 1.5 milligrams of fluoride. And we do test for trace metals in our water system. Okay, so in this meeting, we may hear a great deal of misinformation that has been convincingly refuted and scientifically debunked through thorough follow-up studies and well-established research. We cannot cherry-pick science. We must consider the full breadth of evidence, despite overwhelming scientific research disproving claims about fluoridation's alleged health risk. These false narratives persist. Major medical and health institutions, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, continue to endorse fluoridation because of its proven public health benefits. However, resistance to established science remains a barrier to informed decision-making. This resistance is not merely a lack of understanding, but often is rooted in ideological, political, and identity-based worldviews, where misinformation becomes part of a broader belief system. When individuals accept misinformation in these conditions, whether about fluoridation's causation on IQ, thyroid, bone health, endocrine disruption, or so-called industrial waste myth, they internalize it, making them resistant to contradictory evidence. Studies in psychology and behavioral science have shown that when people are confronted with corrected information, they often engage in motivated reasoning, selectively accepting data that reinforces their beliefs while dismissing conflicting evidence, a phenomenon known as the backfire effect. It is crucial for public, especially the press, who inadvertently amplify these voices, to recognize that the claims associated between fluoridation and health concerns have been thoroughly debunked by rigorous scientific research at the levels recommended for municipal water. As pediatric dental offices in the region can attest, the removal of fluoridation in Amesbury has had a direct and harmful impact on children's oral health. For decades, fluoridation has protected people of Newburyport, and ongoing research continues to reaffirm its benefits despite misleading claims to the contrary.
Excuse me, could you go to the microphone? Thank you.
Is that okay?
Speak into it.
A little bit closer.
Okay, I'm short, sorry.
There you go. We can hear you now.
I'm a moderator on Facebook for thousands of ALS
Ma'am,
patients.
sorry.
In the United States, Europe, thank you,
Thank
and
you.
Asia. I provide information on clinical studies as well as suggesting patients request tests, including talk screens from their doctors. The results are staggering. I am more passionate than ever about this cause since my son passed away from ALS. I am a firm believer in the Hippocratic Oath. Patient, do no harm. Jim McCauley, a dentist, is a supporter with my group. You can read his input by searching dentalconfessions.com. There is no appropriate amount of aluminum fluoride that is safe for the public. Aluminum is a cumulative metal, meaning once it's ingested, it compounds the amount of this heavy metal in your system. It becomes embedded in the soft tissue. From the Journal of Molecular Science, a recent study in April 2023 stated, aluminum in the human brain, routes of penetration, toxicity, and resulting complications. The biggest amount of aluminum comes with food, drinking water, and inhalation. Vaccines introduce negligible amounts of aluminum, while the data on skin absorption, which may be linked to carcinogenesis, is limited and requires further investigation. I will give any dentist in the room an opportunity to provide information to substantiate how a compound manufactured from waste fertilizer and aluminum promotes healthy teeth. Can you explain why some states are now banning fluoride?
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Why our neighboring community, Amesbury, and several states are now banning fluoride. It is due to the lack of information in the local papers and also through the media. I was asked by WBZ to do an interview. They spent 1 hour in my home, and I asked for 3 different conditions. Number 1,
Thank
I
you,
wanted...
Ma'am, sorry. It's after 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Margaret Larzalier, and I live at 20 Prospect Street here in Newburyport. I'm 75 years old, and when I was about 5 or 6 years old, I got very, very sick. And at that time, I was given an antibiotic that made me better, but it affected the permanent teeth that were not yet in. My baby teeth came out when permanent teeth started coming in, and they were very discolored and very soft. In 1960, the city in which I grew up began fluoridating its water. And what a difference it made in me and my number of cavities that I contracted over time. But I also feel, in addition to the fluoride, what has really been significant in my dental health is good dental visits, my own vigilance, and the fluoride that this city provides in the water for dental health. I'm just not a child, but I certainly have benefit from what our city does for the water. So I'm in real support of continuing the practice. Thanks.
I'm Dr. Dan, I'm an internist, board certified. I'm against fluoride. The National Toxicology Program studied this issue for the last 9 years and said there's moderate risk, that's significant. They looked at all the studies. Now, out comes this federal case that says there's again moderate risk with fluoridation causing injury, IQ loss in up to 6-year-olds when you have excessive exposure. Cochrane reviewed the gold standard for doctors in 2015 said there was a 25% reduction in decay cavities. This past year it said it was only 4%, which is a quarter to half a tooth, versus the risk of a brain damage. Let's get real. Brain versus tooth. The second issue is the EPA lost. They had their top oral health folks testifying, and they couldn't persuade the court. Now, the same folks are suing Crest, Colgate, and tooth makers who put Crest in, toothpaste makers, they're putting pharmaceutical grade fluoride in toothpaste, and the dose can't be controlled. When you do a thin slice on the toothpaste, it's 0.1 milligram. When you do a cylinder on the toothpaste, it's 0.25 milligrams. When you drink 8 cups of water, that's 1.5 milligrams of fluoride. Get real. 10% of people drink more water than what's recommended. You can't control the dose. Your kidney patients who have failure cannot excrete fluoride. It's a shame that nephrologists are not here to say, hey, we take out fluoride from the water when we do dialysis. So I'm proposing to any family member who has a child, I will check the fluoride levels in your urine for you after the next Board of Health meeting if this is not taken care of, because the risk is greater than it should be. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Sarah Goodman, and
Speak close to the mic. Thank you.
is this better? Yeah. Okay. My name is Sarah Goodman, and I am not a scientist or researcher, so important disclaimer, but I am a science writer, and I spend a lot of my days reading research papers, and I understand that it can be research can be really hard to interpret, and there are many different studies out there, but I do think that it's important to think about, there's so many variables that go into any research paper, and I think it's important to remember with something like fluoride, there's such documented evidence of the benefits, and taking fluoride out of water has a real risk. It's not a no-risk solution, and so I think with anything nothing is no risk, but you always have to weigh the costs and the benefits, and I just think there is such overwhelming evidence that the benefits of fluoride and preventing cavities and helping with overall health and prevention on a societal level is really huge, and I think that's really important. I think it's important to keep studying, and I think it's important to keep following the science. But right now, I do think that there's enough evidence out there that says, there is a real benefit to keeping fluoride in water. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Megan. I also work at Newburyport Pediatric Dentist. The American Academy of Pediatrics and Dentists Association also continues to support community water fluoridation because of the weight and sound evidence the benefit of the community water fluoridation is clear and compelling. Over the years, there have been studies linking fluoride use with cancer and low IQ, but none of these studies have been proven that fluoride causes any of these harms. It is important to keep in mind the quality of these studies. A good quality study goes through peer review to make sure it was done correctly and the results are accurate. This scrutiny takes years to complete and are then published in journals who hold that standard. What are the experts looking for? Was it well designed? What was their research methodology that minimizes bias? Was it a representative sample population? Some reports that you find online or social media do not filter or review these studies. So trust the experts in the good journals, not social media. Dr. Lindy and Roslyn see several children a week with abscess teeth that are in pain. This is not fun for anyone involved and in fact is quite sad. Children's teeth are smaller and cavities spread much more quickly through baby teeth than in grown-up teeth. Very often young children and children with special needs cannot sit for fillings and extractions. We have kids in this community every week that come into the office and are in pain and need to be seen in the operating room setting. The operating room at Boston Children's is booking out 9 months, and the operating room at Franciscan's Children's is booking out 6 months. With these long wait lists, we worry that this will happen to the Newburyport community if fluoride is taken out of the water. Let's come together and do the right thing.
Bobby Courtney, Jefferson Street. I'm not here to debate whether or not fluoride is good for your teeth. That is not the arena that a lot of us came here on, anything like that. What we're coming here for was the rest of the body. So we've been using fluoride since the 1960s, and at around the 1999 time it started to be introduced, that there was research showing that there's no systemic benefit, meaning it doesn't help your kidneys, your brain. There was no proof that it was adding benefit to the other organs of the body. So those of us like myself have been in conversation with the Board of Health to make one point very clear that I'm standing by. We are not here to debate whether the fluoride is good for your teeth. We are here with strong evidence coming from the federal ruling and many other research that has been done, and concern that ingesting fluoride is not only not giving us systemic benefit, but according to the federal ruling, there is a cause for concern due to the risk that was found in that case. There is also no way to conduct informed consent for those who want to opt out, but there is the possibility to have dentists and the toothpaste themselves provide as much fluoride as people deem necessary. So the unreasonable risks that Judge Chen brought up is that there is a 0.07 milligram per liter poses an unreasonable risk of reduced IQ in children. And I just want to point out that he also pointed out that there were approximately 300,000 formula-fed babies that were part of that risk. And they're receiving 200 times the recommended safe dose because they are so tiny. So I'm asking for this fluoride to be removed.
Thank you very much.
My name is Steve Monteris. Steve Monteris. I don't want a prepared statement, but the way the argument's kind of our argument or discussion is being framed, a lot of fear, a lot of what ifs. There's you guys information on both sides, but I think what it comes down to myself and a lot of people that I know in my family is that I think I should have a choice. And I don't think that the city should be dosing the public water supply with a chemical, and I don't have a choice to, I have to drink the water here. And Dr. Dan had made a great comment about you can have 5 glasses of water and you can't really measure the amount of fluoride that you get. And I get it at the dentist office, I get it in my toothpaste, I get it in my mouthwashes, it's all, there's a lot of fluoride going through this body. So, it's, you gotta consider that. There's no way to opt out, and you're medicating, you're dosing the whole population. Thank you.
I want to first off say thank you to the Board of Health. I see members here. They listened to us the last few board meetings, present the latest research, and just have discussions about what's important to us. We rely on you as the medical professionals in our community to stay informed about the current research and to uphold your oath to do no harm while keeping us safe and healthy, so thank you. My husband often reminds me during our debates, usually involving the kids, that we are on the same team. And this is the way I feel about all of us here in this room. We all want the best for our children, our neighbors, our friends. I think this is important to keep in mind. And this is why I'm here to say that if there is any data at all showing that drinking this fluorosilicic acid or the sodium fluoride that you call in the water could cause any harm at all to the children, to our citizens, our neighbors, our friends, short-term, long-term, small or large, why would we continue to put it in the water? Err on the side of caution. And I think people are bringing this to your attention because the data is there, stronger than any dental benefit. And there is benefit to fluoride topically, and we all know this. And like Bobby said, this isn't our debate. My question is this: the city is adding this pharmaceutical chemical to our water for our dental health. Is it appropriate for the city to make this medical decision for us, or should we have the right to make that decision for ourselves? Anyone with kidney or thyroid disease would want to make that decision since it affects them. While fluoride has its benefits topically, ingesting it affects our entire body in ways that might not be ideal. Despite widespread fluoride exposure through drinking water, brushing, and rinses, kids, as we heard from the dental associates, they're still getting cavities, they're still getting abscesses. So perhaps it's time to reconsider fluoridated water and explore safer, more effective solutions. We can still have our toothpaste and we can still do our rinses, but just because something has been done for a long time doesn't mean it's safe. I believe in our town, we are committed to health and progress. I'm very proud of this town. Okay. So I'm concerned for the city. Is the city ready to be responsible for these documented risks? What happens when educated residents, especially pregnant mothers, read the most recent toxicology program and on fluoride? I believe their focus will shift from cavities to their child's developing brain, and they may want to start testing their urine for fluoride levels. Now is the time Newburyport should put bodily health and safety above all else. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Chris Martell. I'm a resident of Amesbury. My mother is a resident of Newburyport. I came in here tonight to, Newburyport is on a somewhat of a parallel track that Amesbury was. Amesbury was having problems with water fluoridation dating all the way back into the early 2000s. And Newburyport was also having problems with water fluoridation. Sodium fluoride was not dissolving as it was intended to. In Newburyport, for example, 40% of the sodium fluoride was not dissolving. And as somebody already spoke tonight, it's been tested. It does have a lot of heavy metals in it. The other thing is, too, is I had a couple of posters made. It's actually from a picture taken of the sodium fluoride that was being put into Newburyport's water from about 10 years ago. And when you look at the bag, it's horrifying when you look at all of the warning symbols. You know, some of the examples are, it says it's a poisonous toxin. The bag itself identifies the product as such. It says danger, poison, toxic by ingestion. This alone should make people concerned. It says systemic risks. The bag itself lists the bodily organs that the poison targets. In this order: heart, kidney, bones, central nervous system, gastrointestinal system, and teeth. The skull and crossbones symbol on the bag is for poison and other sources of lethal danger. The number 6 refers to a Class 6 substance. A Class 6 substance is identified as a toxic and infectious substance. So you're not putting a pharmaceutical grade in your water supply. You have no idea how much people are actually ingesting. There's no way for them to get tested. Nobody is giving them any medical advice as it relates to dosages, as it relates to age, as it relates to other potential health complications that the person has. Practice is insane. It's putting an industrial waste product in, you calling it a medical treatment, but people have no medical recourse. And I agree with the woman that just spoke, that Newburyport is on a track where they are going to be held liable when it's found out that this stuff is garbage.
Thank you very much for your time.
My name is Patricia Torkelson, and I live in Newburyport on Prospect Street. And I'm speaking to the idea that we need to rely on the best science available in making decisions. And listening to what I've been listening to, I'm not sure that anybody here would agree on what the best science is right now. So I'm urging caution in going forward with making any decision to change things that we do the proper actual scientific research to determine whether, even if fluoride is a good thing for water, which from what I've read, it is a very good thing. Is there some change that has been happening with fluoride that suddenly makes it not a good substance to put in water? I mean, remember, this is not the only substance that, from a public health standpoint, has been added to our food chain. You know, there's, for salt, we had an additive put in salt for many years because I'm from the Midwest, and a lot of people out there had goiter. And by adding something to the salt, that rectified that problem. So I'm a lawyer. I try to deal in facts. And the problem with today right now, the problem with, like, I'm 76. I have never seen this happen in our country before, where we talk about having two sets of facts, and we may have more than that now. And there just is no such thing. There is one set of facts, and I want to make sure we get to the one set that exists in making this decision.
Thank you very much.
Hi there. I'm Cheryl Framler, and I grew up in Newburyport. I live at 10 Dexter Lane. And I'm looking around here. I don't know, maybe there's about 50 people here. There's 18,000 people that live in Newburyport. And I make a suggestion that rather than leave it to the 3 members of the Board of Health to make that decision, that we have a referendum on our next ballot that asks, that gives the opportunity for the citizens to educate themselves, to read both sides, and to have the citizens of Newburyport make a decision. Thank you. And I didn't go over my 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Steve Lucy from Open Street. Can't believe I'm saying this, pro-fluoride. This is something that I think has been going on for 40 years. There's a ton of science around it. I think the cost-benefit analysis, I'm not a scientist. I believe there are people who are very good at that in this world who study this thing exhaustively. If there was a dramatic health detriment, I feel pretty certain you'd let us know. So yeah, just want to say, it seems like this is fairly settled. If someone comes up with a dramatic reason why it shouldn't be, I'll leave you with this. My hygienist says, Steve, they're ugly, but they're going to be in your head forever. Thank you, Florida.
Anyone else with this like to speak?
Anyone else for public comment?
What's happening?
Just call this signing up. Just once public comment is over, we will adjourn. So.
Yes? I live in the Upper Green, but I am part of the Newburyport Water. I think it's important, and some of this is a repeat, but just remember that we're not here to argue that fluoride is helpful for teeth and cavities, but we have new information. We need to remember that there was a time that doctors told us that smoking was perfectly healthy, and then new science came out, and we learned that it wasn't. Things change, science evolves, and we have a lot more data that shows that it's a systemic issue, and it doesn't even affect our teeth that much from taking it internally. The other issue that many of us are not thinking about, that just sort of dawned on me this week, is yes, we drink it, and like Dr. Dan said, we can't measure, but like you're drinking as much water as you should, that's a lot of fluoride. We also bathe in it. What we put on our body goes in our body. So think about a small child taking a very big bath. What amount of fluoride is coming into their system? Can we measure that? These are the things we need to be thinking about. We're talking about these issues when we can still put fluoride, we can go to the dentist, make sure we have our fluoride toothpaste, all those things. But there's no true informed consent on this. And we really should have true informed consent. Like many people have said, where there is risk, there should be choice. And we don't have the choice right now.
Good evening, Ted Semesny. Ted Semesny. I am an Amesbury resident, so I'll say that up front. But just to add a different angle that I think I haven't really heard from anybody exactly. Lots of people like to talk about protecting more vulnerable populations. And it kind of struck me sitting here thinking about, average levels, this amount of fluoride. I would think that typically that's going to be reflective of an average person. And I'm not even talking about like babies or young children, but even in the adult population. I would think that certainly, even if it's only like 5% of the population, their bodies are going to be, for whatever reason, are going to be more vulnerable to fluoride than perhaps the average person. Now maybe it's 5%, but I'm sure it's even more than 5%. I have heard statistics that there's a good 15 to 20% of the population is especially sensitive to fluoride, and it can cause all sorts of adverse reactions. But even if it's just 5%, if you think about a community such as 18,000, Newburyport, 18,000 people, 5%, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of your neighbors that are potentially suffering. They don't know why they're suffering because, maybe they're being told that on average fluoride is generally safe. But there's going to be a significant amount of the population that they are sensitive to this material. And again, at the end of the day, it's not like you can't get fluoride from other sources. Why forcibly put this on the entire population when there's no doubt that there's going to be a significant number of people that are going to be sensitive and have all sorts of problems? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, Mark Griffin, 29 Fair Street. Not very sexy to come out here and say I'm in favor of fluoride, but here it is. I didn't really think that I'd have to be here supporting fluoride in the water. It just seemed a given that we would always have it. It was good for dental health, and there was no one in our health officials that were not telling us that it had any adverse effects to us. And even now, the CDC is not telling us that it has any adverse effects to us if we keep it under the allowable limit, which Newburyport's doing. So, I'm just here to add my voice to those people that have already spoken and say that I trust the health officials, the CDC, and our local health officials, and I'd like to keep fluoride at the recommended level.
Thank you for your comments. All right, this is last call for any public comments. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone who spoke and who listened. I think this was a good session. Thank you all for being very respectful of one another. The Board of Health will have a meeting later this month and if they may, we'll just have it on the agenda. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.